Some good news and some bad news for Donald Trump. Attorney General Merrick Garland will release documents pertaining to Special Counsel Jack Smith's report dealing with Donald Trump's alleged plans to subvert the transfer of power, but he will withhold the Mar-a-Lago report while the President-elect's two co-defendants, Carlos Oliveira and Walt Nauta, still face trial. Details are developing, but Garland's filing to withhold the classified documents report almost certainly means the public will never see it. With respect to the hush money case, Trump has fared worse. A New York appellate court declined to halt criminal sentencing. This would mean he would return to the White House as a felon. Trump's lawyers have filed a motion with the Supreme Court to postpone the sentencing, citing its rulings giving presidents broad immunity from criminal prosecution.
The President-elect applauded Judge Aileen Cannon's decision to stop Jack Smith from releasing his findings on the classified documents. Let's watch what the President-elect said at Mar-a-Lago yesterday.
Because it was a fake case against a political opponent. They thought they were going to use this to beat me. So what you're saying is, I'm just hearing that they're not allowed to issue the report. So if they're not allowed to issue the report, that's the way it should be. Because he was thrown off the case in disgrace. Why should he be allowed to write a fake report? It'll only be a fake report. That's great news.
Now, Cannon said that Smith could not release his findings outside the Justice Department until a federal appeals court in Atlanta weighed in. The injunction is expected to last 3 days. So some news on Trump's various legal matters, none of which obviously are going to prevent him from becoming president, but he does not want to be sentenced for the hush money case, has argued that the Supreme Court in its decision granted broad immunity, and he is about to take office, so we will see if that matters to anyone.
Well, let's take up that point about the hush money case. We'll get to the Mar-a-Lago thing and the Jack Smith reports in a second. In relation to the hush money case, it is true that his team is making the argument about presidential immunity. They're making that argument about a case where the vast majority of the actions were when he was not president, when the trial occurred when he was not president, and now when the sentencing is
and
going to
the verdict
when
occurred.
he's not,
When he was
the
not
verdict
president,
occurred
yes.
when he was not president. So how you make that argument that he should be somehow immunized from all of that because of presidential immunity is not at all clear to me. I think it's a very, very weak argument, and I think it is part of the general pattern of Trump's team simply trying to push back on any effort to hold him legally accountable. It was obviously the only one of the 4 criminal indictments he faced that in fact proceeded to trial before he won the election.
Well, it's a weak case. It was, I would argue, a weak case Trump is making to defend himself. It was a weak prosecution, I would say, in the first place, of a not particularly significant financial issue. The flagging of this payment as a campaign contribution being the reason it got him in trouble, not being a very serious issue to bring a criminal case against a president for the first time in history. But as you said, that is the one that they actually were able to bring to trial, unlike the Jack Smith case, unlike the Georgia case, which is now mired in Fani Willis's alleged unethical conduct, has totally tanked what was, in my view, by far the most compelling case against Donald Trump because of the unique nature of the Georgia law, allowing for trying this as a criminal conspiracy and charging a bunch of Trump associates who you can more, I would argue, clearly demonstrate took not just words, not just said things the way that Trump said things, but took actually actions, tried to hold fake meetings, tried to organize an actual
Fake slate of
actions being taken for which they were going to also be able to loop Trump into that, and it was going to be very damaging for him. Coming not to fruition because of Fani Willis.
I certainly think the Georgia case was much stronger than that one case that did actually proceed to trial and earn him his conviction on 34 counts. I think I think that the expenses in the hush money case were misleadingly filed, although you could make an argument that they were legal expenses to Michael Cohen for legal services. But to the point about the strength of the various cases against Trump, what I find frustrating about the suppression of this Mar-a-Lago report is that I in fact thought that was the strongest case, less about the documents, though that was bad enough, these sensitive documents being in ballrooms and bathrooms at Mar-a-Lago. The reason I thought that was the strongest case was there was a charge of obstruction of justice in that case, and if Trump's conduct was as alleged, it was absolutely textbook obstruction of justice. Him being subpoenaed to return documents and allegedly conspiring with others to conceal those documents, including allegedly from his own lawyer. Now, maybe he would have argued, had it come to trial, that none of that happened, or maybe he would have argued that it was a some way fake case. I didn't find it a fake case at all. I found it extremely compelling on the obstruction charge.
It was. I agree with you that it was compelling. My difficulty with that case, and yes, he should have just given back the documents and then he would have invited no legal jeopardy. However, I've complained about this already on the show today, the knee-jerk overclassification of everything that the government does. I mean, being in possession of documents you are technically not supposed to have is a problem that political figures in both parties, this happened to Mike Pence and Joe Biden himself. Now, they gave back the documents, and that's what Trump should have done. But I just can't, I guess I couldn't work myself up into a fervor over Donald Trump having had these documents and the government saying, no, you can't have them because we classified them this way, and him saying, no, I could have declassified them. But, well, you didn't declassify them. I understand from a legal perspective why it was a pretty open and shut case. From a philosophical and moral perspective, I did not care.
But I don't think it really is a case about overclassification in the obstruction element. Yes, there is the element of the case that deals with the documents, but the point of the acid test I have always felt for Trump-related legal cases is, would a private or non-prominent citizen be prosecuted for the same acts? Now, that's why I think the hush money case is probably Trump's strongest argument, that a normal citizen would not have been prosecuted for that. In relation to the Mar-a-Lago case, the point of it is, if you or I are subpoenaed to produce documents, and we possess those documents and conspire with others to conceal them or simply conceal them ourselves, that is on its face a criminal offence. And whether they should or shouldn't have been classified isn't the point. The point is a legal subpoena was issued, which he then allegedly tried to avoid in the most egregious fashion possible. You or I would go to jail for that.
Well, you're right, but if that happened to you or I, if it happened to me, I would certainly, because if it happened to you, I would probably say, okay, you should have given back the documents, but what are these documents and why does the government have this need? I would still be considering violating. The government has so many ways to go after you for violating a technical and procedural crime in the course of pursuing you for some other matter. This is, Martha Stewart didn't actually go to prison for defrauding anyone. She went to prison for trying to argue her innocence in the face of these efforts to ensnare her. This happens time and time again. In the course of mounting your defense, your perjury or obstruction of justice or misleading investigators, and law enforcement has every tool at their disposal to get you that way. And so, no, I do like to consider how significant I think the underlying criminal aspect is, not just your conduct in how you related to the authorities in the moment. But you're right, technically, yes, he appears to have violated that crime, as would anyone else who defied a subpoena in that way. That's not a good idea.
It's a serious offense with a very long sentence attached.
Well, yes, yeah. I mean, but that's not necessarily good that we throw the book at people. That we have a very comprehensive justice system to. I don't love putting people in prison for long times over.
No,
yes.
to your credit, but that argument is not typically made by conservatives.
It's made by me and the ACLU.
But I mean, it's not generally made by the MAGA people if some unfortunate person is jailed for some.
Well, they've learned a lot more about this kind of thing and how this
they do not. I don't know that they extend it any further than Trump and his allies.
Well, they should.
Well, they should. I agree. At least we found agreement in the end, Robby.
Indeed. More Rising right after this.